There are a lot of young adult books that tackle very mature subjects, such as mental health and mental illness. By the end of this video, you are going to have a basic understanding of the conversation around mental illness in young adult fiction, as well as know how to approach the topic if you want to write about mental health and mental illness in young adult fiction. I am by no means any sort of mental health expert, but I have a lot of characters in my books that deal with mental illness, and so I've dedicated a lot of time to thinking about this issue and to trying to figure out a way to talk about mental illness in the YA sphere in a way that is constructive and not harmful. I care deeply about this issue, so I want to share with you the way that I think about it and what I've learned from all of the reading I've done on the topic. The conversation about the depiction of mental illness in YA fiction, as far as I can remember, started around the popular young adult title and now hit Netflix show 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. 13 Reasons Why tells the story of high school senior Clay Jensen, who finds a box of audio tapes on his front doorstep one day. These audio tapes were recorded by Clay's former crush and classmate, Hannah Baker, who had committed suicide not too long before. In these tapes, she talks about the reasons why she chose to do so, as well as who she blames for her decision. She talks about her classmates in these tapes, and then tasks each of the classmates mentioned in these tapes to listen to them in their entirety before passing them on to the next person mentioned in her tapes. The plot of 13 Reasons Why talks heavily about suicide and suicidal ideation, and also deals heavily with the emotional toll and consequences that bullying can have on people. But the way that this book depicts mental illness is extremely problematic. In the book, the author mentions that Hannah was depressed, but in the audio tapes that she records, she predominantly blames external forces for her making the decision to commit suicide. Also, because this story is told in the form of these audio tapes, while Hannah is narrating the audio tapes, the way that Hannah is depicted to the reader is through the eyes of the protagonist, Clay. So readers never have the opportunity to get to know Hannah by being inside her head the way that a first-person close point of view would allow them to do. They get to know how Hannah is depicting herself in the tapes, and also how Clay saw Hannah. The reason this is problematic is that it places the blame for Hannah's decision to commit suicide on these external forces and not on her mental health, which thereby suggests that suicidal ideation is not curable, and also sends the message to teens that if they were to find themselves in precarious external situations, that they do not possess the ability to seek help. It sends the message that they are just at the mercy of their surroundings, and they do not possess the agency to go and take their health into their own hands. There is a strong correlation between suicide and depression, and it's important for people to see this so that they can see depression as treatable and suicide as preventable. Secondly, because the story is told from Clay's primary point of view, we only get to know Hannah based on how Clay saw Hannah and how Hannah presented herself in the tapes. While the book does work to convey the message that bullying does have consequences and that it can really, really hurt people, but this is a book about Hannah and Hannah's mental health, and books like that are extremely personal. It's really hard to get realistic in your depiction of mental health when you are not seeing the world from that character's eyes. Thirdly, this book is problematic because it glamorizes suicide. In this book, Hannah is able to share the tapes with everybody who wronged her and get revenge on those people by forcing them to listen to the reasons that they contributed to this horrendous thing that happened. Clay even says that he grew as a person through the experience. Through the tapes, Hannah is able to live on in the lives of the people around her, and she's able to hurt the people who hurt her. A feeling that's commonly associated with depression is feeling helpless or feeling like no one pays attention to you or cares about what you do. But through these tapes, Hannah was able to make everyone pay attention to her. Also, in the Netflix show, they showed Hannah committing suicide extremely graphically, which is in and of itself super problematic. The show has since been edited to cut that section out. Many teachers and educators use the book 13 Reasons Why in their classrooms. Its widespread use as a discussion tool sparked a lot of conversation about whether or not the book was actually leading to constructive conversations in these classrooms. But even though 13 Reasons Why is problematic in many ways, that doesn't mean that you can't write a young adult book about mental illness. You absolutely can. They're just some things that I recommend keeping in mind as you're doing so. So the first thing to keep in mind is that young adult books are written for the audience of readers between the ages of 12 and 18. When I was in that age group, I read a lot. I was pretty sheltered and very introverted, and I learned a lot about the world and people around me through the books that I was reading. I was also heavily influenced by the stories that I loved. Because I was very shy and insecure, I wanted to be like those characters that I looked up to. Like, I literally started drinking coffee only because I wanted to be like the Gilmore Girls. Now, I'm not saying that every reader of young adult fiction is as influenced by characters as I was, but if you are writing for young adults, it is something that you should be cognizant of. Your readers may look up to the characters in your books that you're writing, so you don't want to glorify things through your writing that are toxic or maybe harmful to your readers. My rule of thumb with this whole issue is that it's okay to write about mature themes in young adult, like mental illness for example, as long as your narrative offers some sort of hope at the end, and your characters have agency and something they can do about their situation. If you are writing a book about a character who is dealing with suicide ideation, write it from their point of view, show the way that they see the world. Portray their depression in an honest, real, non-stereotypical way. And also, show that character try to seek help and try to get better. Show them let people in, or talk to people, or go to therapy, or lean on people in their lives. And if your character does ultimately commit suicide, show this as a horrible, heartbreaking thing, and not in the glorified way that 13 Reasons Why does. Please do not portray narratives that you believe could inspire young people who might see parts of themselves in these characters that are struggling with these things to do something that may harm themselves or others. So, with that being said, here are some tips for ways that you can write characters with mental illness. First, always write them as people first. Do not other them. Write them as full, complex characters with mental illness, not as a personification of their mental illness. Make sure that you're writing rich, complex characters with rich, complex emotional and mental states. Give them goals, have them want things in life. Do not simplify any of your characters just to a mental illness that you say that they have. 2, don't rely on stereotypes. Once again, learn about the mental illness that you are depicting through your writing. Talk to people who have struggled with it. Read a ton of things online. Watch interviews. Watch documentaries. Don't just rely on the stereotypes you might have in your mind about certain illnesses. 3, give your young adult characters agency. There are some ways that you can treat mental illness and make it easier for the person living with it to cope with it. This is going to send the subtle message to your readers that if they also identify with part of the things that your characters in your story are struggling with, that there are things that they are able to do to remedy their situation, or at least to make things a little bit better for themselves. And this is a better, more positive message to send, especially to younger readers. And 4th, write in a close point of view and really get inside your character's head. Allow your character to tell their own story. This kind of close point of view is also going to allow your readers to feel closer to your characters and therefore empathize with them even more. And this allows your readers to develop the empathy and understanding of other people's experiences that aren't their own, that are so unique and important to fiction. Reading fiction provides this unique opportunity to connect to other people's stories, and this is best accomplished when your readers can feel close to the protagonist. And this will allow readers to better understand what these characters are struggling with. Beyond these 4 tips, and above all else, just please be thoughtful with what you write. Understand that your writing can have consequences, and it can impact people in ways that you might not necessarily intend. Remember that you are writing about characters who resemble real people for real people. And these are stories that could become important to people. So approach a task like this with empathy and also approach it sensitively. That's all I have for this video on how to write characters with mental illness. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like and to subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze. I am an award-winning young adult author who posts videos every week sharing the actionable writing tips that helped me make my writing better. I hope you have a good week, everyone, and as always, happy writing.